Hey everybody, TV Boy here. Welcome to IA Command. I'm doing a special video here because FFG just put out an article that has something to do with us Imperial Assault players, and with the recent announcement of Worlds 2020 registration as well as LVO coming up in a little more than a month. I think a lot of people are starting to wake up and kind of pay attention to the game again. Because FFG just announced that this is going to be the last Worlds, actually the last organized play event for Imperial Assault, at least that's being run by FFG. So let's bring up the article here. So here's the article that FFG put out today, December 10th, and it's the World Championships, all the FFG World Championships that are going to be happening at Adepticon in March. And that's in Schaumburg, Illinois, by the way, just outside of Chicago. And so if we scroll down here, actually I think we can click on this. No, of course not. Anyway, scrolling down to Imperial Assault, you can read this on your own, but basically it lays out how the event is going to work. So Thursday, they're going to have a last chance qualifier, and that's going to be for up to 80 players to enter. And you can actually register for this now, and I encourage you to do so sooner rather than later. Mostly just because you don't know when these things are going to sell out. Especially, I'm actually thinking that Adepticon might sell out before the LCQ, and you need a badge to get in. So make sure if you're going to play, try to sign up for that. You can always register, and then I believe you can refund up to January 1st. So, I mean, not great, but if you haven't booked your plane tickets yet, like I've actually already registered, but I don't have my plane tickets or anything. I'm still figuring that out for Worlds. But anyway, the way it's going to work is on Thursday, they're going to have an 80-player last chance qualifier. They said at least 4 players from that event will qualify for the main event on Friday. However, the main event on Friday has room for up to 80 players. And usually what they do is they use these last chance qualifiers, like this is what they did for X-Wing in October. They use these LCQs, is what we call them, to fill out the remaining open spots in the main event. So we're expecting maybe 15 to 20 players, maybe 25 max, are going to be pre-qualified for the main event at Worlds. These are people that have made top cut at a Grand Championship, or won a Prime Championship, or won a previous Worlds. So that's going to be like a handful of people that have done that. So everyone else is going to have to get into the main event through the last chance qualifier. So there's probably going to be like at least 60 spots open in the main event. So unless they get more than 60 people in the last chance qualifier, we're going to be expecting most, if not everyone who plays in that, to make it into the main event. Now, there's no guarantees on that, but I think unless you do really, really badly in the last chance qualifier, like bottom 10, then you'll probably qualify for the main event. And I think honestly, they'll probably let everyone in if they go through the LCQ. I think this is a recent model that FFG has switched to, with these people having to qualify for Worlds. But honestly, I feel like this is just kind of a formality they're going through for Imperial Assault. This is our last event. It says actually here in the article that this Worlds is going to be the last organized play event. And unless like 150 people show up that aren't qualified, I don't think they're going to turn people away, as long as they play through the 6-round LCQ. By the way, it's 6 rounds of Swiss, so get ready to play some games if you're going to play in that. Once that happens, so the main event on Friday, and then that's going to lead into a top cut on Saturday. So 3-person event. What it doesn't mention here, by the way, is that Isaac and the guys over at IACP are running a IACP regionals on Sunday. So even if you don't qualify for the main event somehow, If you go to Worlds and you're there from Thursday through Sunday, you're guaranteed at least 2 Imperial Assault events that you can play in. The LCQ and then the regionals on Sunday after the top cut. And then you can spend your days watching, spectating. Anyway, I'm planning on being there and covering it, but obviously you get to see more and hang out with people. Such a great community that you get to hang out with if you go. So I encourage you, people, if you think you're going to go, look into it. I think that's all I have to say about this article. You can check it out. I'll put a link in the description. And then if you're thinking about registering for Worlds, you'll want to go to this website at adepticon.org and just click on this register button. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it's on the top of the screen right next to, on the right side of the little house icon that's, oh, there, it's highlighting the house. So that is where you're going to go to register. All right, so now that we've talked about Worlds and registration, let's talk a little bit about the current meta of Standard, which is going to be what we're playing at Worlds and at LVO coming up. Like I said, I think a lot of people with this article being posted have kind of, I've noticed a bunch of people jumping in on Slack all of a sudden being like, hey guys, what's going on? So let's talk about it. First, let's talk about what the current map rotation is. So last year at Worlds 2019, we had 3 maps, and you know what? We've got the same exact 3 maps this year going into Worlds. We have not had a rotation since Worlds 2019. You still have Tarkin Initiative Labs, Lothal Wastes, and what's the other one? Well, it's right in front of me. The mall map, Coruscant Back Alleys. And we have not gotten an announcement. We had an announcement for Endor Defense Station to get a playmat, but we haven't got the mat and we haven't got the rotation yet. So this map is currently not in rotation. So your 3 maps are going to be these 3 guys right here. So the big difference though is that we are in a post-Spectre world with the meta. Excuse me. You've got Spectre got nerfed, and we are in a meta with, well, we'll talk about the meta in a minute, but you still got, even if we do get a 1 rotation before Worlds, we're still going to have Lothal, which is a map that a lot of people, you know, don't really like that much because honestly it's just not that fun. It basically rewards only long range shooters, and it makes life really difficult for any figures that need to close in and get close to attack. So I'm personally hoping that FFG will surprise us and right before Worlds give us 2 rotations, so at least we have 2 maps that are different from last year's Spectre Bowl. But the more reasonable hope is to hope that we at least get Endor Defense Station rotated in, and honestly the more realistic expectation is that we're going to be playing these 3 maps. But you know what? The precedent is that every year FFG has done a rotation right before Worlds. Last year we got the back alley, Coruscant back alleys rotated right before Worlds, and the year before that we got Uskru in right before Worlds. So hoping for a map rotation, but those are going to be your maps right now. Probably most likely going to be for LVO, and possibly we'll still have these maps going into Worlds. So let's talk about the meta so far. We've had, I think, a couple Prime Championships so far have fired. We've got the Nova Open and some European Grand Championships out of the way since the Spectre nerf. So let's talk about it. Let's just jump in and talk about Scum. Scum are doing super good. Not you, Boba. Go away. Scum are just doing awesome right now. Not even, let's look at these guys. And big part of it is just like before Spectre showed up, Hunters and the Hunter suite is super strong in combination with the Rebel Care package. On top of super high damage spikes and focus, they have Hunters just have really good range. So they do well on the maps like Lothal, but they also have a really deep bench of hitters. So, and they hit really well even when they're not shooting at long range. So unlike stuff like Alliance Rangers, they hit just as hard from range 2 as they do from range 6. And even if you can close in on them on a map like Tarkin or Maul, and take out a couple of their hitters, they have a super deep bench that they can just smack you with. Again, unlike something like Rangers, where if you take out 2 or 3 of those, they have basically nothing left for Rebels. So first one we'll talk about is vanilla hunters, specifically things like Weequays, and then Onar, let's see, Greedo, and Sabine is seeing a lot of play in hunter lists. Let's go ahead and put that off. By the way, guys, this is Tabletop Admiral. This is one of the best list building websites we've got available, and I use it almost actually exclusively. So anyway, so yeah, these 4 figures you're going to see in a lot of generic lists. I think Weequays are something that you're going to see as their own main list archetype. Kenny Brown won the Utah Regionals running, I believe, double Weequays. And so, yeah, just super strong still. Smugglers, so they can play on the lam. They can be very difficult to kill. They can get up to 8 and even 9 activations with stuff like Jawas and the care package. So that's going to be a very popular list. It's been a popular list. I think like the top 8 of the Polish nationals was like all scum hunters with various flavors. The other the other one you're going to see is victory point hunters, and that's going to be with stuff like, again, Onar, the usual suspects, Sabine, because she has her command card that gets 2 victory points. But this one is going to be running Jabba. You're going to see Jawas in various flavors of Elite and even the normal one, just for the activations. You'll also often see Hondo, and I guess I should probably show these cards. But these are all cards that can give you extra victory points, and the list, it just plays a bunch of command cards that gains victory points. I mean, you can basically type in VP, and then most of these cards will actually see a lot of play in these lists. And these lists win basically in a timed format. They do really well at getting a ton of victory points in the very beginning, and then kind of winning on time when the opponent can't catch up. By the way, it doesn't mean they stall or try to run out the clock on purpose. It's just that in any given game of Imperial Assault with 65 minutes, you can get in about 3 to 5 rounds, and usually this list, in combination with the Hunter cards, since a lot of these guys, I mean, Hondo's on a Hunter, but he can play on the Lamb. But you've got Sabine and Onar and Greedo. And again, you can usually get up to 8 activations. So this is still a very strong list, is Hunter victory points. The other thing that we should talk about with Scum is the recent popularity of Lothcats. So Lothcats with Beast Tamer, and we can actually put this in. Very, very popular, very strong. Let's see if I can bring it up. Oh, it doesn't bring up Beast Tamer. Anyway, so Lothcats are very popular in scum lists. Usually you'll see them occupying a space that would normally be occupied by something like a Weequay, since they cost 6, and then you have to pay 1 point for Beast Tamer. And oh, I see why I can't do it. It's because I don't have one in my list. So with Beast Tamer, a speed of 5 and then pounce, they can move, what is that? 13 spaces and attack. And then because of their abilities, you'll often see them. So what they'll do is they'll get focused. They'll have the second Lothcat use Fresh Catch on the first one to get a damage token. And then, sorry guys, I got a cough drop. And then they'll send them in 13 spaces and it's from somewhere where they can't be attacked, and usually play something like Death Blow to do a ton of damage that cannot be answered. So these are seeing a ton of play. Expect to play against these, and you need to understand how they work, understand how far they can reach. into your back row, they can even get into your deployment zone in some cases if you let them. And you need to be aware that they're going to be attacking you and not just throw figures into a spot that's usually safe from line of sight, because the thing is, these guys don't need line of sight to smack you. And they're only 3 points, so most times your opponent is super happy to trade a 3-point Lothcat for an unanswerable 5 to 7 damage on one of your figures. So these guys are super popular as part of the meta. Finally, let's talk about the big man, IG-88, or the big bot, big droid. IG-88, still seeing some play, but he's falling out of favor recently. I think a big part of that. And by the way, if you guys want to know more about the Lothcats, Kenny did a whole episode on them on the Zion's Finest podcast. So check that out. I'll throw a link in the description for that. And they go in deep on how Lothcats work in the meta right now. Anyway, IG-88 falling out of favor a bit, I think, because a lot of it is because of Lothcats. Like with the Pierce one, he just countering his +1 block, he just takes a ton of damage from a focused power token Lothcat. And then once he goes down, he's such a huge part of, he goes down so easy, especially with Blaze. He's a huge part of a list's offensive output, and they just can't come back from losing IG-88. And he's just not as quite as reliable as he used to be. That being said, Blaze of Glory still wins games. For those that don't know, it's his command card. It's basically Son of Skywalker, but he takes 3 damage at the end of the round. So if you can get a Blaze of Glory early, if you can keep your IG alive into the mid to late game and earn his points back, he can be good. But right now it's so hard for IG to earn his points before he gets killed, that I think he's falling out of favor. Also, just because it's hard to get a good activation count with IG, but you can get to 8, but then you don't have the depth of bench hitters that you have with other scum lists. So moving on, let's talk about Rebels. Oops. So talking about Rebels here. So we've heard from Rebels have been doing okay. Obviously, we saw the 2 Rebel lists in the finals of Nova. Check that out if you haven't seen that video on my channel. And we've got sorry guys. Oh, we just had a Prime Championship that was won by a list that we're going to talk about now. Not this guy, but Han, Dracata, and Sabine with Hera as well. That is a list that has been super popular. I won the Nova Open Grand Championships, and basically what it does is it takes in my opinion, the 3 kind of strongest figures that the Rebellion has available and just shoves them all in one list, as well as one of the better cheap activations. Actually, the best activation for 5 or less points in the Rebellion is Hera. Dracata's amazing. Sabine is just amazing on her own. She didn't need Spectre Cell to be good. Her attack plus her parting gift gives her amazing damage control. Same is true with Dracata. And then they have great command cards, but unlike Hunters, they don't need those command cards to do the damage. As long as they're getting focus from 3PO and Gideon, especially on Drock and Han, then they are going to do great. I think the current, I think the only thing, so what it is Han, Drock, Sabine, Hera, and then you've got Rebel Care Package, and then 2 points to spare. So that gives you 7 activations. So I think it's just a matter of, do you run a Smuggler to get up to 8 activations, or do you go with extra armor and doubt in that 2-point slot? But that leaves you at 7 activations. And I think at this point, like, a lot of scum lists are going to 9 acts and can very easily get to 9 activations by using stuff like smugglers or not smugglers, Jawas, and leaving IG at home. So I think 7-axe is probably worth it because 8-axe is just not going to give you the last activation that you want with Han a lot of the time, especially if you get stuck with initiative against another 8-axe list. Ryan Janway ran the extra armor version. I believe he also had Doubt, and so I think that's probably the best version of that list. And you're going to see that a lot if you're playing against Rebels, and I think it's a great choice for if you want to play Rebels, but you also want to do really well. Han Rangers is another list that is still seeing play. At least I see it on Vassal, and I know that some very vocal players that have a lot of clout, like Isaac Borno, is still very married to that list. I think it struggles a bit. It can struggle a bit on Maul's map because of the close quarters. However, I think if you go in, you really try to learn that map, learn the line of sight tricks, learn some good positioning, and actually open the doors so you can actually take some long range shots. You can do well on that map. I think that you're mostly going to see, I think the 9-act version is the most popular, which is Han, Rangers, Rebel Care Package, so R2-D2, 3PO, and Gideon, and then like 2 or 3 smugglers to get to 9 activations. I know it's a 9 activation list. You just kind of have to play with it, and I think you have to give up Hera to get there. But 9 activations seems to be a really important number right now in the meta. Just so you can get last activation with, especially if you're running Han Solo. Finally, the box that Jeremy, or Average Joe Gamer, ran to the finals of Nova. And this list is similar to Handrock Sabine, but it uses Leia with Han, and then MHD, and a bunch of defensive cards like On the Lam, Heart of Freedom, Miracle Worker, and then you just box up around 3PO and use Leia's military efficiency to recycle stuff like Miracle Worker and On the Lam over and over again and get extra attacks from Han. I think this list, I think since the Nova Open, I've seen and heard a lot of people talking about running a box list. I think this is kind of the purest form of the Rebel box, is the Han Leia MHD. But I think MHD is kind of going to be the more common. That's the more common thing in the box, and then Leia is going like super extreme hard into the recycling using command cards. Very strong list if you can master it, and I think it's got a very good map rotation right now. I think Han is just so good on the current map rotation. He's amazing on Lothal because there's no safe place that anybody can hide from him on that map if he has last activation to hit somebody with like a focused tools attack. Triple cross, he's great because the gangsters appear and then he can shoot at them at the end with his end of round shot. Han is just super strong right now, and I think he's kind of the figure to beat coming out of the rebellion. Aside from those 3 lists, you got a bunch of like B tier figures in the faction. You got Ezra, Kanan, Chewbacca, Jedi Luke. I think all these figures are okay, but I think they all fall short of the ones we already talked about: Han, Drock, Sabine, Rangers, Hera, and even MHD. But you can run them and maybe do well, but I don't expect them to do super well, at least the highest levels. All right, so that's Rebels. Let's finally get to talking about the Empire. This is going to be the last part of this video. So right now, Mr. Vader is kind of the talk of the town for Empire, as usual. Most lists are going to be running Vader with his card driven by hatred. And of course, the combo of Parting Blow with something with Dark Energy and let's get rid of this. Dark Energy and Looking for a Fight. So you push someone with Looking for a Fight, and then use Parting Blow on during Vader's activation to get multiple attacks in the same act. I think and then of course Zillow is going to be in every list. Of course, we already know this. if you've been playing for a little while, Zillow technique is going to be mandatory for an Empire list. So right now, kind of the discussion is between two lists right now, either Vader Palp Thrawn or Vader Jets. So Vader Palp Thrawn is considered to be stronger in the mirror match, but I think a lot of people are saying it's having a hard time, especially against Lothcats, because you have such squishy targets that are worth a lot of points that can be easily attacked by a Lothcat, where in the past, Palp and Thrawn would kind of hang out just in the back, waiting for their chance to come out and do their thing. But now they have to stay a lot further back to stay safe against Lothcats, and even hiding in the deployment zone isn't safe against a Lothcat round 2. So Jets are kind of the flavor of the month right now for Empire. I think Kenny did again another podcast where he and the guys talk about their experiences running Jets versus Palpatine. I think a lot of the time you'll see like Vader a single set of Jets and Thrawn, and then you get an extra point because if you're running 2 more officers, Zillow, and then you want Rule by Fear, or you can do 2 sets of Jets, but then you don't get that extra point to play with. You're mostly running at 6 activations with Empire. However, you can get to 8, and you can actually get to 8 with Vader Palp Thrawn. And you could probably get to 8 with Vader. I mean, let's build this list out. Vader, Thrawn. So it's interesting because Thrawn was like a mandatory part of every Imperial list, kind of like Zillow for a while, but now I think he's starting to... Some people are saying it's better to have 2 Jets. Jet Trooper, Officer, 2 officers, Zillow, so that's 30. What am I missing here? 31. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, you can actually fit 2 Jets in with Vader and Palp. So there you go. So that's usually what you're gonna see is Doubt, Rule by Fear. So this is kind of the standard. I guess you do run 2 Jets with Thrawn. So this is a standard list you'll see. But you can get to 8-ax if you cut. All you have to do is cut like a Jet Trooper and Doubt for some Death Troopers, then another officer. 2. So I actually find this list to be pretty interesting. You can even cut Rule by Fear and update a Jet to Palpatine and be at 8 activations, which seems pretty good. But anyway, that's kind of the flavor right now is Vader with Jets or Thrawn or Palp. And then the other thing that has been popular, although I say it's popular, but it hasn't really won anything or been doing well at all. But I don't know why people aren't doing it. The other thing is to do a Riot Swarm. So the classic Carolina Swarm is the 2 elite riots, 4 regular riots, and an officer or 2, and then Zillow, which is doing a lot. I think could do a lot better now without Spectre Cell, because they don't have to deal with the constant extra defense that's very hard to cut through. However, Joey, and they talk again, this is on Zion's Finest, I believe made 2nd place at the Utah Regional with a list consisting of 2 elite riot troopers, Captain Taro, 1 officer, and Thrawn, and then Agent Blaze. And he was running a command card list with a ton of spy cards and reinforcements, and then using escalating hostility playset of these to basically supplement his damage in the late game when you combine it with Thrawn's command card, the spy cards, and Blaze's command card to strip cards out of people's deck, as well as the strain ability on the Riot Troopers. So that is something that can be successful, apparently. Captain Taro, I think it's depends on your map. Like, I think it's really bad on Lothal, and I think it can struggle on Tarkin, where it's very difficult to cross the map without eating a ton of attacks. But yeah, so that's your meta right now, at least based on what we've seen. It's going to be a lot of hunters, guys. Be ready for hunters. Be ready for Lothcats. Maybe check them out for yourself. And as far as off meta stuff, we haven't seen too much other than Joey's Taro Blaze Thrawn list with 2 riots. Oh, by the way, he had cross training on both of his riots, so 3 spies. But yeah, that's the meta right now. Those are the maps you've got to work with. I'm practicing. You guys should be practicing. Start practicing on Vassal. We've got get on Slack. Get on the Slack channel. We've got always people looking for games on Slack through Vassal. And yeah, so that's my video. That's everything you need to know about Worlds and the current standard meta, and I hope to see you guys there. All right, that's the video, guys. Oh, by the way, the tournament kits have been ordered. They're on their way. We've got about I think 11 people who wanted kits, so that's pretty good. And I want to thank you all for doing that. And again, thank you to all my Patreon supporters who support me. I'm gonna get those rewards for December out to you guys real soon. And then we've got the Onard coming out in January, and I hope you guys enjoy those. So anyway, peace out, you guys.